thank you very much for joining us on this very special occasion. I'd like to thank Ralph for asking me to kind of MC today. Carol and I have been very long and close friends with Ralph and Honey. And for us, this is a very meaningful and emotional time. We appreciate the fact that all of you have joined us to honor Honey's memory. We'd like to begin by inviting one of the Cheifetz daughters to say a few words. Rosa, please.
Thank you all for being here. The outpouring. Closer. Better? Good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for being here. The outpouring of love and support from invitation for meals, generous donations in memory of my mom, countless phone calls, cards, and a family Zoom call has made this mourning period so much easier. Well, I think of my mom every day because I can still see her beautiful smile, hear her calming voice and infectious laughter, words of encouragement and inspiration. I especially think of my mom on Shabbat. And while struggling with what to speak about today, because a lot of what I wanted to say about her, I said in my eulogy, 3 Hebrew words came to mind to speak about: Shabbat, Shalom, Umvorach. The 3 words are usually said when wishing someone a good and blessed Shabbat, but these 3 words today have a special meaning that I can relate to my mom. Shabbat is a day that is kadosh, meaning holy, unique, and special, which is what today is, a lessening of mourning and a celebration of my mom's life. Every Shabbat night, my mom would light candles, my dad would go to shul, we would sit down as a family for dinner. My dad would lovingly look at my mom and sing Eshet Chaya, about a woman of valor, which is what my mom was. Materialism wasn't important to my mom. Having good Jewish values and family values was. She was warm, kind, generous, loving, friendly, caring, and a long list goes on. Those beautiful values emanated from her, and after she passed, it was amazing to see how many lives she had touched, especially those of blood relatives and extended family, which I consider to be her beautiful friends in the Boca and Fairlawn communities. My mom loved her family and friends and always made a tremendous effort to see, invite over, and keep in touch with them, whether with a phone call, card, or visit. Now, I saw this firsthand from my mom. It was beautiful to hear from everyone how my mom's uplifting personality, warm smile, care, as well as devotion to teaching Torah made such a difference in their lives. On Shabbat Friday night, we also sing Shalom Aleichem, which welcomes in Shabbat angels that are messengers of God. Since my mother's passing, I feel like my mom has been my guardian angel. There have been so many miracles that have happened since she passed, and I truly believe they are due to her good merits in being a guardian angel. And here are just a list of a few. My mom's funeral was postponed 4 times so me and family members could attend. And then family members didn't miss their flights home because of the delay, because their flights ended up getting delayed. My daughter, Danny, which is, of course, my mom's granddaughter in Israel, needed meds and a debit card to be brought to her. And out of the blue, we found family and friends who were going to Israel and could bring her what she needed. Danny was also unhappy on a program that she was on in Jerusalem, and there happened to be one spot open in a Tel Aviv program, and she was able to switch to that program. She then needed to find an internship for that program that she would be happy with in Tel Aviv, and a close family friend offered to take her on as an intern. And in between the Jerusalem and Tel Aviv program, she needed a place to stay for a week. And then a friend that I have not been in touch with in 15 years who lives in Israel opened her beautiful home so Danny could stay with her. And then Danny was also recently able to reconnect with very close family in Israel that she hasn't seen in years. Now goes there every Shabbat and has a very loving relationship with them. I also wanted to do something in special memory of my mom and wasn't sure what to do. I then overheard 2 of my girlfriends, Mariah and Yeshiva, talking about doing a breakfast in memory of their moms, and I was able to join them in hosting the breakfast. Also, for the past 20 years of being a Hebrew school teacher, I've mostly taught the Hebrew language. The rabbi recently approached me and asked if it would be okay for me to switch with another teacher and teach the Torah portion this year instead of Hebrew, and I gladly said yes. This made me feel like I would be continuing in my mom's footsteps of teaching Torah, which she enjoyed teaching her friends on Shabbat afternoons. What I also found interesting is the lady who I visited at the Brackley Jewish home, Deborah Shapiro, can no longer read, and asked me to read her stories from a book of hers that talk about miraculous happenings similar to what I've just described. Min Hashemayim, as if there is a guardian angel looking over them. To end this, I will get back to the words Shabbat Shalom U'Barach. When I think of the literal meaning of the word Shabbat, a day of rest, I think about how my mom always said, when things are getting challenging, take a break, breathe, relax, and rest so you can recharge, change your perspective, and things will get better. And this was great advice. When I think of the word Shalom, it means goodbye, hello, and peace. At my mom's funeral, I said goodbye to her physical presence. And since then, I've been saying hello to my mom as my guardian angel, whose spirit I can still feel and helps brings peace into my life. The Hebrew word shalom also comes from the root word shalom, complete. And your life, Mom, will be a complete life cycle, because while you aren't here, you have inspired us with your beautiful values, positivity, friendliness, and much more, which will be passed on. Lastly, the word Umvarach, blessed, comes from the Hebrew root word blessing. Having you as my mother was, and I could say, speak for my kids as their grandmother, was the biggest blessing. And I loved how you could look at situations that were negative and keep telling me not to worry, because this was just a blessing in disguise. There was usually a lesson to be learned or something good that came out of that situation. Mom, I love you so much. And Shabbat, rest, shalom, peace. May you rest in peace. May your memory be for a blessing. May your neshama have an aliyah. For the best.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Eva, would you like to speak?
Thank you all for being here and adjusting and accommodating to our schedules, because plans keep messing up on us. So I put off writing the speech for as long as I could, because I'm still in a bit of denial that my mom's no longer with us. But when I finally sat down to write my speech, I felt my mom's presence as it came together. As everyone here knows, my mom loved Torah, and so I thought I'd bring a bit of her love of Torah into my speech. While you're here for a Shloshim event to commemorate my mom, Honey Cheifitz's passing, I thought it was very interesting that it's in fact been 40 days since she died, which actually has very special significance. According to Aish, which I'm quoting from, the number 40 has great significance throughout the Torah and the Talmud. The number 40 represents transition or change, the concept of renewal, a new beginning. The number 40 has the power to lift a spiritual state. This concept gave me a sense of peace thinking about approaching this event. To give you a few examples, in the story of Noah, the rain poured for 40 days and submerged the world in water. Just as a person leaves the mikveh pure, so too when the waters of the flood subsided, the world was purified from the licentiousness which had corrupted in the days of Noah. Another example where 40 is significant is that Moshe was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and came down with stone tablets. The Jews arrived at Har Sinai as a nation of Egyptian slaves, but after 40 days, they were transformed into God's nation. And coincidentally or not, in this week's Parsha, Shlach, we see the spies were sent to the land of Canaan for 40 days. And while there is a lot of focus on 10 spies, we see Yehoshua and Caleb emerge as leaders. So I'll get back to the Parsha in a minute. There are many more examples that show the power of the number 40, and I'm hoping with the passing of these 40 days, we can all renew and lift our communal and individual spiritual states, and my mom's zechut, and make her neshama have an aliyah. Now going back to the Parsha and the spies. This Parsha happens to be my youngest daughter Emma's bat mitzvah Parsha, for which my mom helped her write her speech. So I'd be remiss not to touch upon it. The key messages Emma wanted me to mention is even though we learned from the spies that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, Emma knew that when people saw my mom, Honey, they could actually see how sweet, kind, and caring she was by her cover, the smile on her face. She also said that unlike the 10 spies, whose faith in Hashem was questioned, my mom remained strong in her faith throughout. One more thing I wanted to mention on the Parsha, which is a little bit of a different perspective on the 10 spies' faith, written by Nachum Feldman on Chabad.org. He tells of a story of a daughter asking a parent to try out for a sports team, and the parent not thinking the daughter's up for it, saying all these excuses for why the daughter shouldn't do it, and essentially telling her not to try. And an employee approaching a boss with a brilliant new idea, but the boss doesn't think the team can pull it off, and tells them it's too risky, too much work, and not a good idea. In this case, the parents and the boss are acting like the biblical spies. Quoting from his article, Moshe handpicked 12 leaders, one per tribe, and sent them off. They returned to Moshe and the people and reported that despite God's assurances, conquering the land was impossible. Virtually all the commentators asked the same question. How is it possible that the spies had a complete loss of faith after experiencing all the miracles of Exodus firsthand? How is it possible that great men, handpicked by Moshe, failed to maintain their trust in God? Just turned. Okay. Perhaps we can suggest that the spies never lost faith in God or in his ability to perform miracles. They trusted in God, but they did not trust in the people. Sure, they thought God's perfectly capable of performing miracles if he wishes to do so. The problem the spies thought was that there's no chance that people would remain loyal to God and deserving of his protection. Therefore, they concluded that conquering Canaan was impossible because the people were not up to the task. Seeking to protect their beloved people from failure, the spies reacted like the parent trying to discourage his daughter in order to protect her from failure. They said the task was too difficult, were unable to go up against the people for they're stronger than we. They told the people that the land is not desirable in the first place. The land we pass through to explore is a land that consumes its inhabitants. The spies may have acted out of love, but they failed the mission and the people they were meant to serve. Yehoshua, on the other hand, emerged as a true leader, believing in Hashem and the Jewish people. In moments of challenge, a leader or a parent must lift up, inspire, teach, encourage, and show others how to discover the reservoirs of faith, courage, and strength hidden within the soul. Just like we saw with Yehoshua, my mom was such a leader, both in her communities and as my mom and my children's savta. We know how she handled her own difficult moments and always found the positive, but also in dealing with my challenges and difficult moments, she always lifted me up, believed in me, and never said I couldn't do something. And she did the same for my children, Kayla and Emma, and for my husband, Jeff. And as we've heard, for so many more people, she helped us strengthen our faith, find our thank you Hashem moments, as Kayla would say, and our moments where we need to understand Hashem has a plan. This is one of those times that I need to find my strength hidden within my soul to get through this unbelievable loss and to help my children. We think of her and miss her daily. I mentioned previously, but I know some people never get a day with a person as special as my mom. I'm so blessed that I had over 50 years with her, and my children are old enough that the time they spend with her will be cherished always. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I am doubly blessed because I was raised by two wonderful parents who love me unconditionally and made me who I am. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I love you. On a closing note, we must remember to never to underestimate and discourage as the spies did, for we must always be like Moshe, Yehoshua, and Caleb, and my mom, who believed in the people and sought to discover within them the treasures that lay hidden deep within their souls. Thank you all for listening and for being here, and thank you for being such a supportive community to my parents, and now help my father get through this unbelievably difficult time. Thank you.
Ralph, would you like to say a few words now, please?
I think you can just experience one of the reasons I'm so proud of our daughters. So at Honey's funeral, I reviewed her qualities, which included her intelligence, her kindness, her knowledge and practice of halacha, her ability and desire to educate others, and her outreach to those who needed or appreciated the attention and kindness that she provided. She was very close to her children and grandchildren, and she loved and supported all that I did. At the funeral, I assumed that most of you were generally aware that she was friendly and kind. But starting with Shiva visits, I've been practically overwhelmed with consistent comments about how deeply Honey's warmth, smile, kindness, and other qualities touched everyone who knew her. I consider myself a person who tries to be helpful in any situation or relationship in which I'm involved, but there was no way that I could compete with the manner in which Honey always looked for ways to help people and make them happy. I sometimes cautioned her about maintaining a supportive relationship with someone whose issues might negatively affect Honey. But she assured me that she would not be negatively affected, and she wasn't. She just gave and was happy in her giving, most often with positive results recipient. Honey died suddenly without warning. She had suffered through 7 years of Parkinson's disease and a number of surgeries, some with long healing times. Hashem chose to take her in a way that she did not suffer further. This was merciful to her, but shocking to all of us. I feel that Honey is watching over all of us now, both humbled and happy that she positively affected so many people that she knew. My bracha to all of you is that you merit Hashem's bracha for going out of your way to be kind to others and to help those who need it, which I believe is the reason that Hashem placed all of us on this earth. Thank you all for coming. And your presence here today in such numbers help provide and reaffirm His mission.
Now, a few thoughts from Honey's good friend, Carol.
Can't believe it. I still can't believe it. My friend Honey stood apart from all my other friends. I met Honey about 40 years ago in Fairlawn, New Jersey. We had just about moved in. We went to the pizza store because we were hungry, and Honey and Ralph were at a table. We got to talking and asked to join them, and they didn't hesitate to invite us to sit with them. Our friendship grew from there and lasted until a month ago when she left us. Honey was unique. She embodied the traits of our matriarch, Sarah Imanu, and everything good in this world. Her door was always open, and she and Ralph either invited guests or were invited for Shabbat meals. Even when her health declined, she never hesitated to have guests. And with Ralph's help, her table was never empty. Together, we started a group of couples, some of you might remember this, who got together Shabbos afternoon to discuss Pirkei Avos. A few years later, Honey hosted a group of women to come to her home Shabbat afternoons to learn about the Parsha. The participants included Russian immigrants, Shiva grads, Hebrew school grads, and some whose education was limited to what they saw in their homes when they were growing up. Honey was a very active participant in the Chesed of Bikur Cholim. She encouraged friends to go with her to the local nursing home and the local hospital, bringing cheers to the patients. They looked forward to her visits, and for some, she was one of the few who came to bring some sunshine into their lives. Honey graduated from yeshiva and from college and was extremely bright. She earned her CPA degree and worked for the IRS, auditing big companies, sometimes years at a time. She was well respected, even though she was a scary IRS agent. But her most important priority was her unlimited love and devotion to Ralph, Ruthie, and Eva, and her grandchildren. Like all parents and grandparents, she was very proud of their accomplishments.
She was a very loving and devoted wife. She encouraged Ralph to have a Devar Torah to read at every Shabbos meal, which we enjoyed. She also encouraged him to have a study partner, and Rabbi Yudin was happy to arrange that. We left Beilon in 2005. Not long after we moved, one Yom Tov, they visited us at Century Village and ended up buying an apartment that very weekend. They were welcomed into the Torah Or community and became active participants. Honey spoke at some sisterhood meetings and was warmly received. Ralph served on the shul board. Family, friends, shul, Bikur Cholim visits, hostessing Shabbos and Yom Tov meals. Honey could always be depended upon to be there. I and many of her friends will miss her warmth, her smile, and her friendship. Not hearing her voice on our weekly calls, wishing one another good Shabbos, and catching up on things that happened since we last spoke, has left me with a major empty space inside which can never be filled. Honey, I and everyone else miss you.
Carol, now we'd like to have the speaker for this afternoon, or really can't, or we can.
First, I want to tell you how moved I am, even though I never knew your mom, your wife. What a beautiful, beautiful family and what beautiful words. Really, you don't need me. You've said it all. Rena Shoshana, honey, clearly from what you've described, is a woman who learned Torah, loved Torah, and lived Torah. And it is my honor to dedicate my shir to her memory. May her neshama happen. We find ourselves at this period, this time, between almost equidistant, between two periods of mourning, of national mourning. About 4 weeks ago, we culminated the period that we refer to as Sphira, the 32 days where we mourn the tragic death of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. In another 4 weeks or so, we are going to then experience the 3 weeks, beginning with Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, culminating with Tisha B'Av, another 3-week period of mourning. And what seems rather strange is that these mourning periods are really given by our rabbis almost identical reasons. We're told that the reason we mourn during Sphira is because the students of Rabbi Akiva were not noheg shalom nahagu kavod zelazeh. They didn't have proper respect for each other. And we mourn in the 3-week period that is imminent, that is coming up. We mourn the loss of the Beit HaMikdash, the exile of the Jewish people, which our rabbis explained to us, at least in the case of the second Beit HaMikdash, was due to sinat chinam, to baseless hatred. So it seems that on both ends of these periods of mourning, the cause was a failing in interpersonal relationships, in ben adam lechavero. And when we experience these times, we almost roll our eyes and say again, it just seems to be one replica of another. And even though I do believe that is true at first blush, I believe when we think about it a little bit more and learn about each period of mourning a little bit more, what we can reveal are differences that give us a mindset, give us a focus to think about, to contemplate, and an ability, therefore, to work on our own shortcomings in those different periods. So let's begin with the Sphira period that we have already experienced. We know that the period of time between Pesach and Shavuot, those 49 days, were intended for the Jewish people to grow, to move up that ladder of spirituality, to make themselves ready for Kabbalat HaTorah, to receive the Torah. We also know that they received the Torah after they achieved a level where the Torah tells us, Vayichan Sham Ha'am Neged Hahar, the Jewish people camped as one in front of Mount Sinai, to which Rashi, echoing Chazal, tell us, Ki ish echad b'lev echad, one person, one heart. They achieved a level of unity after those 49 days that made them worthy and able to receive the Torah. The question is, why? Why was unity a necessary requirement to receive the Torah? So one simple answer that is posited by several of our Mefarshim, the Kliyakar, and other words, the Ketaba Kabbalah, is that we need all of the Jewish people to observe the entirety of Torah. If you're not a Kohen, you cannot observe the mitzvot that have to do with kahuna. If you're not a king, you can't abide, you can't keep the mitzvos that have to do with kings. If you're a woman, you can't do those mitzvahs that are particular to men. If you're a man, you can't do the mitzvahs particular to women, etc., etc. So we need a unity to accept the Torah because we need all of Klal Yisrael to observe the Torah. But when you think about the fact that the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died at that time, what were they really lacking? They were lacking kavod zeh lazeh. They were lacking a respect for each other. And we mourn their loss in that period because that period tells us that there was something more than just a lack of unity. There was something more going on there. And the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Akiva's students died and he had to start all over again. He literally traveled south and retaught students. These 24,000 students, obviously, apparently, were brilliant Talmidei Chachamim. They had learned for years under the Rebbe of Rebbe's, Rabbi Akiva. So granted, they didn't deserve the Chesed Award, but not to allow them to be the transmitters of Torah to another generation, why not? What's going on? It's also fascinating that there is a similar kind of question that goes on in Gemara Eruvin. The Gemara there tells us that we had two great houses of study, and you've all heard of them, Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. For 3 years, these two houses of study, these two Batei Medrash, were arguing with each other, were at each other's throats. Finally, at the end of 3 years, a batko, a divine voice, comes from heaven and says, you should know Elu, the Elu, Divrei Elokim Chayim, both the opinion of Beit Hillel and the opinion of Bet Shammai are true, but halacha is Kedivrei Bet Hillel, is like Bet Hillel. The Gemara itself is astounded. And the Gemara says, wait a minute. You just told us that Elu, the Elu, Divrei Elokim Chayim, that they're both true. If they're both true, then why are you telling me that the halacha is like Hillel? Split it. Give me 50% of one and 50% of the other. So the Gemara answers its own question. The Gemara says, you know why? Because the people in Bet Hillel, the Rabbanim, the Rebbeim, the students in Bet Medrash of Bet Hillel, they were Vatranim. They always taught the opinion of Bet Shammai also. Whereas in Bet Shammai's yeshiva, you learned the opinion of Bet Shammai. In Bet Hillel's yeshiva, he taught you the opinion of Bet Hillel and the opinion of Bet Shammai. And the Gemara comes in and says, not only that, but you should know that they presented the opinion of Bet Shammai before their own opinion. The first opinion usually makes the greater impression, and they actually presented the opposing opinion first and only then presented their opinion. The Beis Halevi asks a bombshell question, phenomenal question. He says, wait a minute. Clearly, Bet Hillel were nicer guys. Clearly, they were more fair. Once again, they should be chosen as Shabbos Abbas. But honestly, halacha is about truth. Halacha is about accuracy. Halacha is about God, what do you want? What are we supposed to be doing? Not about who's the opinion of the nicer guy. Why are you telling me that just because Hillel were nicer people, therefore the halacha should be like them? Says the Beis Halevi, you don't understand. It's not about being the nicer guy. When you have kavod for another, by definition, you have kavod for their perspective. You have not only tolerance, but you bring about, you embrace their opinions, their thoughts, their thinking, their differences, their perspectives, so that you can evaluate your opinion versus their opinion, so that you can weigh the differences and think about what's going on here. Maybe in this area they're right, maybe in that way they're wrong, maybe in that I was too close to judge. If you're truly seeking truth, then the way to achieve truth is to have kavod for the other. Because if I don't respect your opinion, then I'm never going to question my own opinion. And I'm never going to get to the point where I can analyze the different perspectives, weigh and evaluate them, and then arrive at the truth. So according to the Beis Halevi, the reason Ben Hillel was chosen, the reason Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim, thousands of years later, died during this period of time, the reason we need unity before Kabbalat HaTorah is not so that we can sit by the campfire with our arms around each other singing Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, but it is rather because Torah, receiving Torah and transmitting Torah is about being honest. It's about being able to evaluate and get to the truth. And with Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim, if you can't have respect for the other, if you're not listening to his opinion, then you will never really arrive at Emet. And so too Bet Hillel, only because they presented the opinion of Bet Shammai and gave it equal weight, were they able to be the people, the house of study, after whom halacha will follow. So what we mourn in the period of Sphira that we just finished experiencing between Pesach and Shavuot is the inability to reach the unity that is required to achieve truth. And truth and openness is what was necessary. It's interesting, a few weeks ago, I recall reading an editorial by Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal. And she was discussing at the time how she tried to engage different protesters in Columbia University. And she tried asking them, tell me, from the river to the sea, tell me what this means to you. What's the history? What's going on? And they refused to talk to her. They shut her down. And she too brought up the fact that they refused to even listen. They're going to stick to their story and that's it. It's the end. They refused to even possibly evaluate the possibility that there's another truth, in fact, the truth that exists outside of their own. But what about the period that we are about to experience? What about the mourning period that we are about to enter into in a few short weeks? We're told that, as I mentioned before, is because of our shortcomings, because the Jewish people were suffering from sinat chim, hatred. What do we do? What are we supposed to think about? What are we supposed to work on? I believe that there's one person, one figure in Tanakh, one heroine who actually can give us the answer. And that is Rachel Imenu. And the reason I say that is because Yirmiyahu tells us that Rachel is crying. And Hashem says to Rachel Imenu, Mini kolach mi bechi, stop crying, wipe your tears. Yesh schar le'pu'ulatech. There are rewards for what you have done. Vishavu banim li'gulam. Your children will return to their homeland. So the geula is in the hands, in the tefillah of Rachel Imenu. It is Rachel's tefillah that is responsible for being able to bring us back. And why is that? In fact, a fascinating psikta tells us that when the Jewish people were leaving Eretz Yisrael, when they had been completely exiled, the Beit HaMikdash destroyed, they screamed to God and they said, help us. And there's no reply. They then turned to the Avot and said, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, help us. No reply. And they became depressed as they were leaving Eretz Yisrael. And finally, they came upon the kever of Rachel in Beit Lechem. And they came to her kever and started crying. And Hashem whispered to them, you're at the right place. It is Rachel's tefillah. It is through Rachel that you will be redeemed. So the question again is why? What's going on? Before Yaakov dies in Parshat Vayechi, he calls over his son Yosef, the viceroy of Mitzrayim, and he says, Yosef, you have to swear to me that you're going to take my bones and bury me in Eretz Yisrael. And according to the Medrash, Yosef looks at Yaakov and says, Dad, Abba, Tati, and what did you do for Mom? You left her on the street there in Beit Lechem on the dirt road. You could have brought her to Hebron, to the Marat HaMachpelah. Wasn't that far? What's going on? And Yaakov explains to his son, you don't understand, I wanted to, but God told me no. Al pi hatibor, God himself told me no. She has to be buried in Beit Lechem, so that when the Jews pass her kever, they will be able to daven for her, and she'll give them that maternal hug to keep them going through their exile. And her tefillot, her tears, will bring them back. Once again, beautiful midrash. But what does this mean? What did Rachel do that makes her the person whose tefillot can bring the Jewish people back to Geula? And the answer is that Rachel, as did Leah, as did Yaakov, knew that there would be 12 sons born to Yaakov. And through those 12 sons would emerge Klal Yisrael. When Rachel saw that her father planned on putting Leah under the chuppah, and that she and Yaakov had made secret language, secret signs, so that they would know, Yaakov would know if indeed it was or wasn't really Rachel. Rachel knew her sister would die of embarrassment. And she couldn't let that happen to her sister. And here she made a cheshbon with herself. She thought to herself, wait a minute, I'm bringing another woman into my marriage, a woman who might capture my husband's heart, a woman who might be the one, and indeed it was true, from whom emerges kings, Kohanim, Levim, Mashiach. They all actually come through Leah. What am I doing? Am I out of my cotton picking mind? Why should I do that? But Rachel said to herself, it's not about me. I don't matter. It's about Klal Yisrael. If I could figure out, and if God made sure that all of those incredible descendants come out of Yaakov, it doesn't matter if it's through me, if it's through Leah, if it's through Bilhah, if it's through Zilpah, or anybody else. My focus, my goal, my aim is Klal Yisrael. I am tasked right now to do something immediately to prevent the embarrassment of my sister. Yes, I'll have to live with having another wife in our marriage. Yes, I'll have to live with the disappointment, perhaps, of these children not emerging through me. But it's not about me. It's a complete ability to negate the self, to take yourself out of alignment. And that is the essence of tzniut, of modesty. That is where it begins. That's what it's all about. And Rachel was the one that did that. In a Pirkei to Rabbi Kahana, Rachel says to God, God, you're bent out of shape because of the fact that Bnei Yisrael are worshiping other gods. According to Chazal, the reason the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed was because they violated the three fundamental sins of Avodah Zarah, Shfichut Damim, and Gilui Arayot. You're upset because of Avodah Zarah? God, I took into my marriage a living, beautiful woman. You, what are you worried about? False idols? They're not even real. So if I could be Mavatir, I could negate, I could swallow my pride. And God, can't you also? Rachel is emblematic. She is the paragon of what it means to be able to negate your own ego. Moshe Rabbeinu in Sefer Devarim says to the Jewish people, Anochi Omed ben Hashem ubeinechem. I am the intermediary. I am standing between you and God. Comes along the Sifsei Chaim and says, what Moshe is telling Bnei Yisrael is, do you know the impediment? Do you know what stands and blocks the blockade between you and God? It is the Anochi. It is Enochiyut. It is the ego. The ego is what stands between you and God, between Galus and Geula. The grandsons of Rachel, Ephraim and Menashe, they inherited the DNA of their grandmother Rachel. And when Yaakov blesses Ephraim and Menashe, initially Yosef positions Menashe on the right hand of Yaakov, and his younger son Ephraim on the left hand of Yaakov. And as we know, Yaakov crosses his hands and puts the stronger hand, the stronger bracha, over the head of Ephraim, the younger son. We who have learned Sefer Bereshit know that we've been through Cain and Hevel, and we saw how the brothers couldn't handle the jealousy between brothers. We know Yishmael and Yitzchak. We know Yaakov and Esav, and we know the brothers and Yosef. Menashe and Ephraim were the first set of brothers, where when the younger brother was given what the older brother thought he deserved, the older brother is Mevater. He says, I get it. It's whatever is best for Klal Yisrael. And that, by the way, is why we bless our children every Friday night, our sons, Yisimcha Elokim Ke'Ephraim Menashe, because we want that love, and we want our sons, and we want Klal Yisrael to be able to take the eye out of Klal Yisrael and do what is best for Klal Yisrael. My friends, we are living in historic times. I, in my life, have never seen the sheer numbers and amount of people that have been able since October 7th to negate themselves, their egos, to give up their jobs, their families, their children, and fight for Am Yisrael in whatever way, in however Am Yisrael needs our help. In one famous story, which I can't help but share with you, especially in this year, there's a Ben Guzman who was killed in the war fighting in Gaza. And his parents found a letter that he had left in his desk drawer. And the letter said in Hebrew, Der Iman Abba, says, if you're reading this letter, it's because I have not returned. And I am asking you one thing, and leaving only one demand in my tzavah, in my last will. And that is that whether I am dead or alive, you do not negotiate for my release. You do not release one single prisoner for me, or pay a penny, or in any way endanger the future of the Jewish people. to retrieve my body, whether I'm dead or alive. That is what it means to negate the I, to relinquish the ego for the sake of Klal Yisrael. Emir to Hashem, may this coming period of Sphira, these 3 weeks between Shiva Asar and Tisha B'Av, may they bring about the Geula in the schus of our incredible people that have, I believe, learned, internalized, and are living the lessons of Rachel Imenu. Thank you so much.
Thank you for most inspiration. I can't even describe how terrific that was in Tani. I'd like to thank all of you for coming, showing your love and respect for Honey and for the family. I'd like to also invite you now to join us for some refreshments. Again, thank you and have a very nice day. Thank you.